Welcome to the Earth Pod, presented by TERI, a space where conversations converge on climate, sustainability, and the urgent need for environmental action. I'm your host, Ipshita Mitra, and I'm excited to begin today's episode with a topic which is not just breathtaking in its beauty, but equally critically vulnerable. I'm referring to the Himalayas, and most specifically, the Indian Himalayan region. The Himalayas, often called the third pole, are considered the world's tallest mountain range, but it is also one of the most climate sensitive regions. These mighty mountains are a lifeline to nearly 2 billion people across Asia, feeding major rivers, regulating weather systems, and supporting rich biodiversity. Unfortunately, today, these are under tremendous and unprecedented stress. Glaciers in the Hindu Kush Himalayas are melting at alarming rates. In fact, studies warn us that even if global warming is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius, this region will lose over one-third of its glaciers, and a 2 degrees Celsius rise will wipe out nearly half. So it is not necessarily an environmental issue, it is also a humanitarian crisis in the making. Destabilized river systems, shortage of water resources, altered agriculture, and the rising risk of extreme weather events such as landslides can cause a concern for the Himalayan region. Add to that the silent yet deadly threat of air pollution. Black carbon and dust particles drifting from the Indo-Gangetic plains are accelerating glacial melt and disrupting rainfall patterns. So this region is not only grappling with climate change, but also with loss of biodiversity, extreme disaster vulnerability, and deepening poverty and inequality. At the top of the world, the Himalayas are warning us. What will happen to us will eventually ripple through the rest of the planet. So to unpack the environmental challenges and issues facing the Himalayas today and what lies ahead, we have with us today Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General, the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI, a leading voice in environmental research and sustainability. Dr. Dhawan will be sharing her insights and perspectives on the fragile ecosystem of the Himalayas and discuss how climate change is shaping, rather reshaping, this vital region. A very warm welcome to the episode of The Earth for Dr. Dhawan. We are delighted to have you here. At the outset, if you could discuss and tell our listeners and viewers about the Indian Himalayan region and why is it a critical strategic source for not just India, but the entire South Asian region?
Absolutely. And thanks, Ipshita. The Himalayan region or the mountaineer regions, they have been neglected. It's largely because the population density in that region is comparatively lower. And somewhere it is also that those communities they don't have a voice. They, in a way, they remain isolated. They were very happy with what little they were able to grow, conserve, and within those communities, there was a lot of satisfaction and they were doing pretty well. Now, as there are two things which have happened in the world. First of all, it is the media itself and the communication, because now they exactly know what is happening in other parts of the world. And therefore, they also have aspirations to grow like that. The other factor is that because of the changing climate on which they have not contributed anything, they are getting impacted.
Yeah.
And as you rightly mentioned in the introduction, Himalayas, over there are so many rivers that originate, Gangotri.
Right.
And it is that while we get water from those rivers, we never thought that these are the glaciers are something that we should conserve. And since we were getting ready supply of water, most of the time we neglected it. Coming to the other point, the aspirations of people, and I won't say just of those who are residing over there, somewhere even each one of us is responsible because there is quite a bit of tourism, which immediately asks for more hotels, more use of natural resources, whatever they have over there. And that is resulting in, you can say, cutting down of forests, and we are creating resorts over there. That's putting pressure on water because we use a lot of water, and therefore the eco-fragile region is having double burden. One is what is happening because of our activities in the plains, and the second is the activities we are forcing on them to undertake. Right now, they're quite happy with it because they want growth, and therefore they are looking at that we have a hotel of this kind, or that's generating uh, some avenues for their growth as well. So jobs are getting created. So they are happy about it, and they are not really thinking about the carrying capacity of that region. And in the long run, it is definitely going to impact the overall sustenance of those very people. We are looking at how those states should grow. It is largely, we are looking at economic growth. We are not looking into the ecology of the region, what is going to happen to the river. And if you're visiting same area again and again, you'll find what has changed, what has gone wrong, what have we lost. And I'll give you one example. And TERI also has a presence in Mukteshwar, a beautiful area. And when I started going there in year 2000, and that was the time almost when we were intending to set up our unit over there. And I was always advised that you must reach there by 6 o'clock. And today, even if I'm traveling in the middle of night, I can travel. And there are traffic jams. In fact, on one particular instance, it took me 14 hours to cover a distance of 350 kilometers. And till the foothills, there was no problem. And it was only in the hilly terrain that I felt that entire Delhi is there to spend the weekend. It was so bad. And then what is happening over there? It is so many hotels. I don't know if there is landslide or if there is an earthquake, what is going to happen to the entire infrastructure that is being built there. And to build those hotels, somewhere you're disturbing the hill. And that definitely is going to have impact even on earthquakes, even for landslides. And we have seen that in Jyotimat already. What has happened over there, it was not done overnight.
Right.
It was done over years. And the way we use natural resources, because, like, for example, and I'll say we go wrong. And I was talking to them that, okay, now there are so many hotels, and the area otherwise is also water starved. So I was just talking to them, okay, why don't we reuse this water, which comes from the large amount number of hotels? And the answer or the discussions which I had, and they said, how much will it cost? So I said, almost 2 rupees a liter, the treatment cost. The answer was no. We get it for 1 rupee. I said, how?
Wow.
So the how was that there is a beautiful spring nearby. So the tankers go there, they fill the water. So water becomes free. It is only transportation cost.
Cost, right.
So therefore, we are misusing the natural resource. And that is what we should be careful about. We are looking at tomorrow. We are looking at today, I'll get more income. But what's going to happen tomorrow, I'm not worried about it. So we really have to plan that way.
Yes, you made a very important point regarding how we should understand the definition of growth, not only in terms of economic growth, but also ecological sustenance and preservation. So, keeping that in mind, what would you say are the top 3 or 5 environmental concerns that are affecting the Indian Himalayan region as of present day?
You know, something very interesting. I was in Nepal a couple of days back, and I was very fortunate to take that mountain flight. And it's very interesting that they take you for 1 hour over the entire Himalayan region, Himalayan range. Very interesting. So I was very happy. And at the same time, you can say I was very unhappy. And that was that my image of Mount Everest was that it is absolutely white. I was basically looking for snow covered peaks.
Right.
But what I found, there was snow, but you can also say it was like black forest at many, black mountain at many places. And which definitely showed that it is not the thickness of glaciers that have really reduced. There are regions which are perhaps there's quite a bit of sunlight or other exposures where there is no snow. And let's look at glaciers because that is what, at least in Indian culture, we always worship Gangotri.
Right.
And in most of our poems and otherwise, we are very proud of mentioning Himalayas and we consider these rivers to be sacred. And the reason for that is because they're giving us water and you can't live without water. Now, because of melting of glaciers, what is happening? First of all, we have already seen what has happened because if there is a big rock of ice getting into the river, that also causes flash floods and loss of human life and
Right.
so on. The other is that if you don't have the source, it's like a bank. If you withdraw all your money today, then tomorrow your interest is going to reduce.
Right.
So here also it is that because the overall glacier ice which is there has reduced considerably, your water flows are going to be much lesser in years to come. And we are already witnessing fight among states, among nations on water. And in many areas, there are problems related to water, which we have already started noticing. And water, it's the lifeline, whether it's for agriculture or for drinking purposes. You require water, you can't survive without it. So, therefore, we have to take care of glaciers. And as I mentioned initially, that those are the communities who really haven't contributed to the climate change, but they are going to be suffering or to be worst affected due to the changing climate. And for that, what we need to do is the state governments, they also have to be very sensitive. They must ensure that their growth is sustainable. It's not just economic growth. And ecological security is, to me, is far bigger than your economic security.
Absolutely.
What we need to do is at least create a microclimate, at least have lots and lots of trees, ensuring that those are not just trees, they are ensuring biodiversity of the area. And thereafter, it is that are we compensating communities to take care of even the forests or the biodiversity? And that is where the carbon credit program that should be taken up in a big way. And we are already doing it in TERI also. And we are encouraging farmers to grow trees. And in return, they start getting like we give them the planting material. And thereafter, from second year onwards, because of the CO2 that trees fixes, they are compensated. Those are the carbon credit mechanism.
Right.
So we should encourage that and take it in a big way in northeastern region. What we want is we don't want over exploitation. So if they are collected from the wild, yes, there is always a threat. But if you have a proper mechanism of collecting them and ensuring that you replant them, then it becomes a source of ready income. And something like if I talk of Indian Himalayas, in most areas we grow a lot of bamboo. So there are two ways. One is that, okay, you cut down bamboo and in an illegal way, and that is how the locals can make their living. The other is that you train them how to make artifacts from those bamboos.
Right.
So therefore, they have to collect much lesser number of bamboos, and then their livelihood comes actually from processing them. And somewhere over there, the role of renewable, the clean energy will be extremely important.
Right.
Because let's also look at, because one of the things, and if what I mentioned to you about Mukteshwar, that time the roads were not electrified and most of the houses, they had no access to electricity. And with the result, it will be a small lantern outside few houses. And practically by 6:30, the moment it becomes dark, that's the time everyone will go off to sleep. And today, because of electricity, you'll find even the markets and everything open till 9:30.
Hmm.
So therefore, you have additional hours. Now, what we also need to do over there is, let's not depend on electricity from fossil fuels.
Right.
Let's ensure that they are able to use renewables, whether it is solar. And you'll be surprised that even areas like Leh, the solar illumination levels are so high that the cost of solar energy production is much lower. So, in most of the hilly terrains, the skies are clear, and therefore the solar radiations are pretty good to generate solar energy.
Right.
They have potential of hydro and so many things. So, therefore, what they can do is generate electricity of their own and use it for either its food processing, because right now quite a bit of fruit also goes waste. So,
Hmm.
that is how they should earn their livelihoods.
Right.
They really don't have to depend on the conventional tourism. It should be ecotourism.
Right.
And again, I'm very happy to mention over here that this concept of homestay is helping the conservation of culture of that place, as well as making use of natural resources. And since local communities over years, they knew what kind of resources they have and how to cope up, that is the culture they are further propagating to the tourists as well. So
Right.
that is very healthy. So we should look at that.
Right. And also, it's very interesting that cultural sensibility that you talk about and how we consider our natural resources sacred. I think that should be at the topmost, in our agenda of socio-economic and cultural development.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the purpose of environmental sustainability or achieving a kind of climate resilience in mountain systems would be defeated.
Absolutely.
And if I could go back to your point about how you gave that example of spring, natural spring, and how it is a source of free water, etc., with that perspective in mind, the threats that we see in the Indian Himalayan region right now of glacial retreat and water insecurity, they have been flagged as the major threats. So how does this impact the upstream and downstream communities?
So, first of all, water conservation, those communities, they also do water harvesting,
Right.
limited extent. And even you'll be surprised, 1500 liters tank, which I think we consume every day at our house. Now, if you give them tank of that capacity,
Okay.
they are able to do agriculture in a better way.
Right.
They actually just take a small pot of not of about 500 ml and water each of their plant. So that is the local communities. And what we do over there, we also have a radio station called Kamauwani.
Right.
So we tell them that this is how water is to be used. Now, again, coming back to that, what are the needs of locals? And in a way, there is a much larger issue of migration of male from the hilly terrains, because they
Right.
come to plains in search of jobs. And thus, it's the women, and most of the time, discussion is that their children, they don't want to follow any agriculture because it's tedious. You have to collect water from far off places.
Places.
You bring them, either you use it for household or you are using it for crops. And the easy way out is that, okay, you leave the city, you leave your village and come to Delhi and become a security guard. But what we are intending to do is that we are trying to give them the right set of practices. How do you raise crops? Which are the resilient crops? Not telling them to shift from one to the other. We are saying, okay, in addition to your usual agriculture practices, you do this as well. It is basically preparing them for the future. Because when water availability, because today, yes, they have plenty of water in the spring, and on that basis, they are misusing water. But in years to come, because of the receding glaciers, even in the nearby spring, the water is going to be lesser and lesser. And it's all along the hills. So those on the top, they will take much longer, but to face this water scarcity. But those who are in the foothills are already facing that because they don't get, especially during the summer months. So therefore, what one needs to do is give them the other opportunities, and which will be met both by renewable as well as their conserving or their developing their skill set. So skilling becomes extremely important for them. And then coming to, because the point which you made, what is going to happen upstream? Upstream is more of that, will there be, because of the glacier melt, sometimes flash flood? But on downstream, it is, will they even have water? The quantities they require. So, which is very scary. So, uh, and it's going to happen very soon. We don't have many years. We have to act immediately and delay it, and if possible, reverse it.
Ma'am, you mentioned about your visit in Nepal recently, which was, I believe, again, a conference on the Himalayan region.
It was Sagarmatha Samvad.
Samvad.
Yeah.
And I believe one of the discussion points was how to strike a synthesis or a balance between traditional knowledge or indigenous system of knowledge and modern developments. And this is where the role of community and their participation comes in. So what is the kind of balance that we are trying to achieve between technology and tradition? If you could talk about that and your key takeaways from your Nepal visit.
Well, I was very happy because at least that particular forum brought about different countries in the Himalayan region. So whether it was Nepal, Bhutan, India, so Myanmar, so we all could basically start discussing about the issues, cross-boundary issues as well. Because, like, in a way, one phrase which I really liked was that air doesn't have to take any passport. Or so that way it is that it's going to flow from one nation to the other, and the impact of what is happening in Tarai region, say by burning of agriculture residue, is also going to have impact on the air of the entire region. And air, it's not just pollution, it is even the air when it reaches the heights, how it is really going to have impact on melting and the quality of water ultimately.
You talked about skilling of communities, sensitization, outreach programs that TERI has been doing with Kumawani and other initiatives. I would like to bring the policy landscape right now. What are the kind of policy frameworks that are needed at the national, local, international level at the moment?
Yeah. See, at the policy level, what I want governments of all the hilly states, that they need to take ecological sensitivity in the center.
Right.
While we need ecological clearances from Ministry of Environment and Forest, sometimes they only look at, okay, this many trees if you're going to cut down. So it is, tree is looked as a tree. Tree needs to be looked as an ecosystem in itself.
Not a
Because
commodity.
it's not a commodity. It provides shelter to so many birds. And so therefore it's the entire thing that needs to be looked by them, because and the moment you keep ecological sensitivity in the center,
Yes.
then all your plans, and I personally believe that when you talk of sustainability, sustainable development, it is not that you can't grow economically. So sustainable development can take place. We have a unique opportunity in India, especially because we have to build, not rebuild.
Right.
The state, right from the beginning, is saying that we want to be net zero. Assam, another example, the chief minister is saying that by 2030 he wants to be net zero. Now, these are the promises they are making, and largely because when they are growing, they can grow green. And in late TERI was also involved. So we said, when you're building infrastructure, let's not take truckloads of cement from Delhi. What kind of building material should be used? It can be pressed mud. Now, over there, that is what it is. And nature had given us something. Wherever you are, the local materials are far ecologically far more sustainable than getting a material from outside.
Right.
So that is what we should build on traditional knowledge, earth tunnel. And I'm sure you have also witnessed going to any fort and you find how well designed it is.
Since the World Environment Day is round the corner and the theme of this year is reducing plastic pollution, with reference to the Indian Himalayan region, how do you think plastic waste management is being taken care of in this region?
It has created a problem which is going to be very difficult, even with the amount of plastic which is there on the hills even today. And you go to any hills, beautiful hills, that on one corner you'll find so much of plastic waste lying over there. We really have to find and move towards bioplastic because the damage which has been done, we can't reverse it, but then we can definitely move to other solutions. The other thing is the waste management as a whole. We always say nature is a great scavenger because it takes care of itself, provided you give it time. But let's also look into that on hilly terrains, because of low temperature, the time taken for degradation is much longer than in a humid 35 degrees kind of temperatures. So what we need to do over there is that now we have these biogas digesters. Whatever at least municipal solid waste is created, that should be treated. And that gas actually is a source of energy for you. So make use of that. And in many hilly states, they have also banned plastic. But while they have banned single-use plastic, I still feel the use of plastic bottles should also be banned. And that can also happen because I feel one of the problems with many of the tourists and those who are conscious also is, where do I throw my bottle? So if I'm going to be there for 10 days, I don't want to bring 50 bottles back with me to Delhi. So therefore, if no one wants money, but there should be a collection center where we should be able to deposit those bottles and those should be recycled.
Right. With that, we come to the end of a truly eye-opening, fascinating, enriching conversation with Dr. Vibha Dhawan, Director General TERI. Her perspective on the environmental challenges facing the Himalayan region and what can be done to address them has been both sobering and inspiring. As we have heard, the Himalayas are not just about majestic peaks. They are climate sentinels, sources of rich biodiversity, and a critical source of life for billions. Protecting them is not optional, it is essential. This is just the beginning. The Earth Pod will return with more voices, stories, and insights from various experts and researchers at TERI, covering various themes on climate change, sustainability, clean energy, circular economy, and so on. Together, we will discuss the science, the policy, the people, and the planet, and how all of it comes together. If you liked today's episode, please share it with your network, follow us, subscribe, and stay tuned because the Earth needs every conversation that we can spark on. Until next time, take care, take action.